What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 3 and Out YouTube page. I'm John Middlekauff, and we are talking football all day, every day. Make sure you subscribe, like the video, share it with your friends. Let's roll, baby. Let's do a little thing that we like to call the Middlekauff mailbag. At John Middlekauff. At John Middlekauff is the Instagram. Fire into those DMs, as many people have done. Hey, John, I'm a diehard Charger fan and watch them every Sunday religiously. I appreciate that because, Nick, you've been through some stuff. You really have. You've had, I don't know how old you are. Let's look at your profile, your block, so I can't see you. Looks like you're playing softball or something, but I'll just assume you're 30, 35, 30. You've had a rough 15 plus years. I truly believe that Herbert was placed on the Chiefs, Bills, Bengals. He would have 3 Super Bowls by now. The only reason the media doesn't give him his flowers is because of his lack of playoff success. But he has actually some of the worst defenses of all time. Not even Mahomes would win if he were on the Chargers. If you truly watch him play, he is deadly accurate and makes plays no one else can make. So why doesn't the media judge him honestly and properly? I will say this. One thing I've learned over the last couple of years, when it comes to sports, when it comes to politics, who gives a shit what 98% of the media thinks? I mean, is there a group that, honestly, if they were talking about you, you'd go, that really hurts, right? The overwhelming majority of you, of them, what they say has, who cares? It does not matter. Honestly, in politics, it's like half of it's like fake. They just lie. In sports, people give their opinion. Now, some of them on TV feel like they're faking an opinion to try to get a reaction, but it just doesn't matter. So when someone says a good player is not good, it's just like, who cares? It doesn't. If you don't think Justin Herbert's a good player, I don't know what to tell you. Now, he is a tough player to judge for 90% of fans because of his situation. He's played with Brandon Staley. It's like, fuck. Now he's going to get, legitimately judged. If these next couple of years playing for Jim Harbaugh, like, they got to win together as a pairing. I got news for you. I would bet on them to do that. I'm not saying they're going to win the Super Bowl, but they're going to be good. Why? Jim Harbaugh is always really good. And Justin Herbert, when he's had a good coach or just had a well-run operation like in Oregon, he won. So I would expect them to win. Honestly, this year, I think they'll win 10 games. And I think Herbert's going to be really good. So what's people on television, former players, former players, sometimes whenever I see their takes, like I come across social media, you're like, it's so funny how often I get forwarded things from like assistant GM or, college scouts. Like, this is the dumbest take I've ever seen. Like, no one I know thinks this is real. Like, this, like, no one agrees with this. And that's, like, let's face it, as a player, to judge other players, you just judge them playing against them. But as a GM, you're a scout or just even a fan, you can kind of be objective. You can watch other players. And listen, we all have biases. If you hate a certain team, I get it. Like the Raiders, I saw this clip of them having the Kermit the Frog doll with Mahomes jersey. It's like, what are you idiots doing? Just because you beat them on Christmas? They just won their second Super Bowl. You just fired like your 10th coach in 20 years. Might even be more than that. Like, in what world does anyone think that's a good idea? In what world? Like, how stupid that is. And before, like, that, Chargers kind of felt like they would do something like that. No longer. And this is, Chargers get lucky. That's who they play. Who are you taking? Harbaugh and Herbert or Minshew and Antonio Pierce? I'm not trying to take shots at the Raiders at Antonio Pierce. Seems like a good guy, but that doll is a reflection of him. Can you imagine that doll at an Andy Reid practice, at a Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay practice, at a Bill Belichick? Bill Belichick would cut that in. If that guy wasn't Tom Brady holding that doll, that guy would be cut immediately. He would have been cut yesterday. And I just think that that's what you have going for you now. Is before it just felt like Mickey Mouse, just embarrassing. And let's face it, Brandon Staley was beyond over his head. And now you get Jim Harbaugh, who's born to coach, be a head coach, and has been doing it for 2 decades and winning at the highest level. So if people want to say whatever they want about Justin Herbert, I'd say, come talk to me in fucking November, buddy, because you better buckle up because we're coming. First off, congrats on the engagement. I appreciate it, Logan. Get me out of my own head here. I've been seeing the major fan base NFL teams usually win the Super Bowl. And teams like the Lions, Bills, and Panthers, for example, don't make the NFL as much money as teams like the Packers, Patriots, Chiefs do. I will say the Patriots and the Bills have switched spots. Like the Bills are rating very, very highly because of Josh Allen. So I would not put the Bills in that scenario because the Bills are playing in a ton of afternoon window games with Jim Nantz, which is the highest rated game of the day. Sunday Night Football, which is the highest rated television show. They play Monday nights, Thursday night. Like the Bills are a cash cow for the NFL right now in terms of television ratings. Do you think it's possible the NFL wouldn't want the smaller fan bases in the Super Bowl because of ratings could gatekeep them out of big game by using the refs to do so? I just think the NFL has proven, like when the Lakers were in bed with the mob, or not, I'm not blaming the Lakers. Tim Donaghy was in bed with the mob and made sure the Lakers got to the NBA Finals over the Kings. The NBA, I think, is a better example, baseball as well, of like LeBron and Steph Curry are the only players that rate right now in the NBA at a high level. In Major League Baseball, like having the Dodgers, having the Yankees, having the Phillies or the Mets is a big deal. In football, it's kind of proven that these playoff games, whether it's the Jags and the Chargers or the Niners versus the Cowboys, you are doing massive numbers. And obviously the Super Bowl benefits if Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes is there. But if I tell you right now it's Bills-Lions in the Super Bowl, it might not be the highest rated Super Bowl ever, but 100 million people are watching. The NFL has proven, and this is why their business model is so strong, they're the least dependent on that stuff. Like the NBA would sell their left, leg to get Steph Curry versus LeBron James, even at 40 and 36 years old in the conference finals against each other, 7 games. I mean, they would give anything, but they no longer can do that with the mob and the refs. And baseball, clearly, I mean, the Dodgers, beside the fake 60-game season, can't make it to the World Series to save their life. Hell, they struggle to make it out of the first round. So it hurts them. In football, it just doesn't matter. It really doesn't because of the consumer. Like, think of how I consume these other sports. Like, if you tell me the World Series, and I love playoff baseball, but it's like Cleveland versus the Phillies. Like, I don't know if I'm as locked in, but if you tell me it's Yankees Phillies or Yankees Dodgers, probably not missing it.
Forget what the calendar says. Football season is right around the corner, and that means Best Ball Week at DraftKings isn't far behind. Here's what you need to know. DraftKings Best Ball Millionaire Contest is their biggest fantasy contest ever. We're talking 15 million guaranteed prize pool with 2 millionaires being crowned for the first and second place. If you're a set it and forget it type, I know I am, then Best Ball is for you. No waiver wires, no roster management, bigger rosters, so injuries will not ruin your season. Only the draft, and that's it. You're set for the year. Some of you might have heard I won $18,000 a couple weeks ago at the U.S. Open. It's an incredible high. But $15 million in prize pool, how do you beat that? Multiple millionaires crowned with winning this. I can't even imagine the high being in the mix. And like they said, no roster management. Injuries won't impact you because you got bigger rosters. Still not convinced? Check this out. This year, DraftKings is offering everyone a draft one, get one special. Your $20 entry fee scores you a bonus ticket. Get ready for Best Ball Week at DraftKings. Download the DraftKings app and use the code JOHN. That's code JOHN for all customers who enter the NFL Best Ball 15 Millionaire Contest to get a bonus ticket. Only during best ball week, only on DraftKings.
Hypothetical question. I liked your point on why Tua and Dak shouldn't get the huge contracts and how silly it is that every new contract that is signed needs to be the most expensive. What if the league operated with a system that forced contracts to match the position ranking? Example, third best automatically gets third highest salary. What do you think the impact would be on the franchise team building? Well, who's doing the ranking? That would be the problem that the union would go to war with. Who ranks them? PFF? John Middlekauff? Colin Cowherd? GM survey? I mean, who gets to rank them? I hear what you're saying. And if it was just cut and dry, it'd be easy. But first and foremost, the union would wage war on you, even with this idea, number one. And two, in fairness to their argument, like, how could you properly rate? Who throws the most touchdowns? Who has the most wins? Who's the best player voted on by their peers? Top 100? I don't know. That's what makes it difficult. I actually see exactly what you're saying. And if there was a way that was objectively unarguable, that like this is where they rank, top 15 quarterbacks, I wouldn't be against it. But I think it's impossible to get that. And it's why you get these situations that, let's face it, forever until interest rates went up, your house in your neighborhood, the next house that went on sale in 20 and 21 and then halfway through and mainly through 22 was just more. And then what happened? Interest rates started going up and we started nitpicking. Yeah, I don't like your rugs. Yeah, you need a new roof. Yeah, this layout's not as great. And who got a lot of juice? The buyer. Who's had a lot of juice the last year plus? A buyer. I know, because I bought a house last May. And I tried to buy a house the year previously, and I was going to get bent over. This time I did some bending. No, it was give and take. It wasn't like I was in complete control, but it was not 2021 anymore. And you got to fight for a lot of things and win some of those. And I think that's the problem with these quarterback contracts. It doesn't feel like there's any give or take. It's just one side, like bend over and take it. It's like, well, we all know you're not like a top 7 quarterback, and I'm just going to pay you more. How does this make, in what other industry does that work? I understand Jordan Love. That happens in other industries. I'm betting on the future. I think this could be, if it was a stock, a 10 bagger, I think this guy could be awesome. Same with Trevor Lawrence a little. Like, I'm betting on the future. Kirk Cousins, Dak Prescott, like, you're not betting on it. You're just buying that player. Like, we know exactly what that player is. We know the Atlanta Falcons want the player that they've seen the last 3 or 4 years with the Minnesota Vikings. They're not betting on some future. They just want that player. Well established. Like, there's no question marks what's going to happen here. Right? So I don't get it. Like, I'm sorry. Like, Tua is never going to have great mobility. He's never going to have some howitzer. His game, let's face it, we've seen those type of players, never really translates to winter football, which is a problem when you play in a sunny place and all the good teams play in frigid weather. Dak, I do get. Like, Dak's proving every single year, like, Dak's beating the best teams in his conference. Tua cannot do that. And I feel like I'm not like anti-Tua. Whenever I think he's an impressive guy, I like the person. He works his ass off. Again, he's a solid starting quarterback. But, like, why can't a solid starting quarterback be like, yeah, we just signed Tua to $26 million for the next 4 years. 100 and whatever that would be, $5 million contract. Wait, that would never happen. But if it did, it'd be like, God, that seems right. Seems like a good win-win. This guy gets $100 million. Dolphins get a solid quarterback, but he's not nearly paid like the other elite guys. Never happens that way. And it doesn't feel like it ever will. I feel like the business is a little broken. The union would be like, these guys deserve their money. Yeah, Patrick Mahomes does. Josh Allen does. Lamar Jackson does. Elite players. This guy's not as good as that guy. So in what world, this guy's not as good as that guy, yet this next guy, because he's the newest, gets way more money than that guy? How does that make any sense in any business? But it's just like agreed upon in this one. I don't think the owners fight back enough. Maybe because they're making so much money, who even gives a shit? That's probably the reality of that answer. This is pretty crazy, but this is Sean. This is not crazy because I don't even know his question yet. It's just long. So let's dive into it. At John Middlekauff, Instagram, fire in. Question comment for the bag. I'll do my best to summarize. He did a lot of summarizing. As the league transitions away from a running offense, NFL GMs and ownership seem to have mutually concluded that the running back position is not a premium spot, citing that teams can draft productive players later and that second contracts are too risky. I'd agree. Yet, as receivers increasingly ask for $28 to $35 million, there seems to be little pushback from ownership in writing these checks. Rarely is the dependent nature of the position discussed, even amidst mounting evidence that a great wide receiver one is not needed to win a chip. For example, Jefferson, Hill, Chase, Lamb, and Adams, arguably the best 5 wide receivers in the league, are either on losing teams or did not win a playoff game in 24. Chase, if Burrow's healthy there, they've been pretty successful, but I hear what you're saying. The Packers made it to the divisional round with a bunch of 4th, 5th, and 6th round rookies. Chiefs traded Hill and went back-to-back with a tight end and 5 unreliable wide receiver threes. And going back in time, virtually none of the great Patriot teams in the 2000s or 2010s featured an elite receiving corps. Tell you this, your question was really long because you just wrote a lot, but you're making good points. In my opinion, the offensive and defensive lines, as well as the quarterback and coach, are significantly more important to winning than an elite wide receiver talent. Yet no one balks when a wide receiver asks for a monster deal. Plenty of elite wide receivers have rotted away on dysfunctional teams while putting up all-pro stats. Do you think there will be a market correction in receiver contracts? It would seem that the most dependent position in football should not be getting quarterback level money. Yeah, I mean, listen, it's why I've said with the 49ers, like, this is my number, buddy. I'm not budging. If it's just, I'm not budging. We're not paying anymore. And I think the 49ers aren't even that comfortable giving him $26 million a year. But they've kind of acquiesced because I think they can get rid of Deebo Samuel next year. And who knows with George Kittle. But CeeDee Lamb, this was my thing earlier with the Cowboys. It's like, okay, I pay Micah Parsons, which is a no-brainer, and I pay CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson money. Well, if I let Dak walk, like, who's throwing in the ball? Gardner Minshew? I'm going to sign like Jacoby Brissett next year? Like, what am I going to do? Hope and pray I strike oil again in like the 3rd or 4th round at quarterback? But I think where it gets tough, the Chiefs paid Tyreek Hill once and won a Super Bowl with him. And honestly, he made one of the biggest plays in that game, right? Him and Mahomes. I think they got to the point where they chose other guys. They essentially chose Chris Jones. But yeah, I think you would argue the defensive line is more important than the offensive line if you have a good offensive coach. Kyle Shanahan told my guy Tim Kawakami that he thinks drafting offensive linemen high can be a little overrated. Now, I disagree a little bit. And he's like, well, I drafted Trent Williams with my dad it's not like we don't draft them. I agree, guards and centers. I have no problem drafting those guys on the 3rd day of the draft and developing in them. I do think to get good tackle play, you typically have to draft the guys high. Most of the best tackles in the league are high-end drafted players. And I think that philosophy for the 49ers, for example, was they took Javon Kinlaw essentially over Tristan Wirfs. It's a devastating decision. And I just think that when you have, back to my point, like Justin Jefferson on your team, it's hard to not want him on your team. But it's pretty clear. And part of it is like, well, if we're not going to be really good, we want to sell some jerseys. Like, this is a business. A lot of people got uncomfortable when John Morrow was like, this is the most popular guy on our team. I thought that was, of course he said that. It's true. Because he's the best player. I mean, it's not like he's just saying the most popular player. Like it's some guy that puts up hollow stats. And no, he's the best player on the team. He's a high character guy. So, like Devontae, the Packers did it right. They really did. But let's face it, they probably would have extended him if he would have played ball. I think it's hard when you have really good players who are good guys that you want to keep them. So I think it's easier said than done. But I'm with you. I would struggle paying wide receivers $35 million a year. It's like, wait, how many games did we just win last year? How many games did we win last year? But you're like, this is the best player on my team. I think it's easier to, and I'm guilty of this, to be like, draw a hard line, trade him. I think it's also hard to trade, right? Because like the Packers and the Chiefs pulled it off, right? When they traded those two guys. But if you wanted to trade Justin Jefferson, is someone going to give you 2 1s and 2 2s and then give him that contract? Because you can't trade him for, at this point in time, for a 1 and a 2.